Hello guys, I'm Pickles Parker, and today I will be giving you my review of the Doctor Who Christmas special Twice Upon a Time. Enjoy!
Who is that? I'm the Doctor. You may be a doctor, but I am the Doctor.
I am your future self.
Sunglasses, they're sonic. Indoors.
Come back alive.
Be here when I do.
I will stop you. I will stop all of you.
Now, I should probably just go over where I've been. Well, yes, my last video, apart from the Jumanji movie reaction, was over 2 weeks ago. And when I did my audio reaction first thoughts to the Christmas special, I said this would be coming in the next couple of days, not 3 weeks later. Well, I've just had a lot to do, and I haven't really been able to get around to it, but I've finally done it. And yes, this is technically still a 2017 video, although we are nearing the end of January 2018, although you shall be seeing a lot more regular content after this video, as only the content on the channel has been a bit weird with a lot of movie and TV audio reactions since Christmas. But now we are I will be getting back into my usual schedule. So yes, the Christmas special. So the Doctor, refusing to regenerate, lands on the North Pole, where he stumbles across his first incarnation. Then, who is also refusing to regenerate, they also stumble across a World War I captain played by Mark Gatiss. They then try to the TARDIS is taken into a ship, where it's revealed that the captain was taken out of his time just before he died to have his memories collected by these enchanted glass people, and then was supposed to be returned to his time of death, yet was actually misplaced to the South Pole. Now, the Doctor says that he will stop them, but is encountered by Bill, but the Doctor thinks that she's not really Bill, as she's just memories, and Bill died. Then the Doctor goes to find out who these enchanted glass people are, and goes to Villain Guard, where we see the return of Rusty, where the Doctor then uses the Dalek database to find out who these enchanted glass people are, but finds out that they are actually good, not evil, and the Doctor returns the captain to his time of death. The Doctor used it just a few minutes beforehand so that the captain doesn't die, as it is the Christmas Day armistice. Then the first Doctor returns and regenerates into his second incarnation, Patrick Troughton, and the Doctor then realises that he must change because the universe needs him to carry on going. So after a bit of motivation from Bill and brief appearances from both Nardole and Clara, he then goes into the TARDIS, makes a speech to his next incarnation, and then regenerates into the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker. So first, I'm going to talk about the opening. Now, this episode opens with this 709 episodes ago with previous footage of the 10th planet, and then it fades out from 4:3 and black and white into 16:9 in colour, Hartnell fading into David Bradley, the Doctor then stumbles out into the South Pole and then sees the 12th Doctor. Now I do quite like this scene. It's nice to see the First Doctor's perspective, as at the end of the Doctor Falls we see the 12th Doctor's perspective of these events. Although the whole previously 709 episodes ago will have probably been very confusing for the casual viewer and put them off, as they won't know what the hell was going on. So maybe they should have left that bit out, and just seeing the First Doctor's events maybe without the whole 709 episodes ago caption, although it's supposed to be informing you and supposed to be more helpful to have you understand these black and white events, maybe it actually confused casual viewers even more with the caption being there. Although I do love the whole black and white that then fades into colour, although it was spoiled by the trailers, but although it is quite a nice way to start the episode. Now I think I should just talk about the music by Murray Gold. Now it's no secret that Murray Gold, the man who's composed the music for Doctor Who since 2005, is leaving. So he filled this music with tons of previous scores as a sort of greatest hits. But although some tracks that he reuses works quite nicely, I think a lot of the tracks just feel incredibly shoehorned in there. And it constantly puts you off because you're constantly thinking, you're trying to watch it and then you go, oh wait, where have I heard that one before? And the music isn't something you should be focusing on. It should kind of be just background music that you can appreciate it, but your focus is on there. But with you trying to piece together where you've heard each bit of music before, it then puts takes your interest off the actual main plot of the episode. And things like especially the 9th Doctor's theme, which is an odd choice, but is played over and over again this episode, and that is really shoehorned in because none of the scenes that it appears in it fits with. And I think that even in the 13th Doctor's regeneration scene, I think that it shouldn't have been there, and it's really shoehorned in, and I think that scene would have worked better with no music. But yeah, like even things like I Am the Doctor, which is very, very specific to the 11th Doctor era, does actually fit in quite nicely. And Veil from the End of Time, which is the music where the 10th Doctor's farewell tour fits in quite nicely, but just some bits of music that really feels out of place, especially the 9th Doctor's theme. Now, on the other hand, the direction by Rachel Talalay is stunning. It is one of, if not the best episode directed in the new series. It looks phenomenal. To the whole battlefield in 1914, to the South Pole, to the Enchanted Glass People's ship, to Villain Guard, to even the scenes in the 1st and 12th Doctor's TARDISes. It just looks phenomenal, and especially the 13th Doctor's first scene where the TARDIS obviously explodes. It just looks so good. So Murray Gold, I would rather, as it's his last episode, he composed some really good music rather than just dragging loads of reused music that he'd used before, as it takes the focus off of the episode and some tracks just don't fit in. But Rachel Talalay's direction is really good. So there is a lot of humour in this episode, and I think a lot of the times with humour in Doctor Who it can fall flat some of the times, but I think a lot of these jokes actually land quite well, and you do find yourself laughing quite a bit in this episode. I think the jokes do land well compared to other episodes when they don't, and I think the humour's used to a good effect here. And yeah, it's quite a funny episode, although it is supposed to be quite sad at the same time. Now, the whole concept of the two doctors not wanting to regenerate, which is a good concept, and it's a really nice concept that they're using, that the fact that the 12th Doctor has to convince the First Doctor to regenerate, because if the First Doctor doesn't regenerate, then the universe will practically be over, because all the civilizations that all the incarnations of the Doctor saved since the First Doctor would all be out, the universe would be no more. Therefore, the First Doctor had to regenerate. Although this is brought up at the start and brought up at the end, but really isn't used to its full potential. It could have really been a driving force that both Doctors had to regenerate, and that they had to avoid all conflict, because as they've put off regeneration, if they were shot now, they would be dead, they would not regenerate. But it's never really touched upon in this episode, and I think that could really give some caution and really bring a threat into our antagonists, because especially if the First Doctor was to die, then that would cause huge paradoxes. So, but it's never really touched upon in this episode, it's never used to its full potential, which is something that I really think this episode should have used a lot more, as it's a great plot point, and it's a great idea, just it wasn't used as hardly as much as it should have been. So obviously in this episode we get the First Doctor entering the 12th Doctor's TARDIS for the first time, and obviously this was the children in the eclipse, so it was no surprise. But it is a really good clip, and the First Doctor's reaction is really good. And so is Mark Gatiss' reaction, where he's like, is this madness? But then you get the penny drops when the 12th Doctor calls him a World War I soldier, and he's like, what do you mean, one? And then the music suddenly stops, and the 12th Doctor's like, sorry, spoilers. And then it just goes back again. It's a really nice scene, because while it's a very comedic whole scene, then you suddenly get that dark scene that what the captain is fighting for is there's going to be another war anyway, so no matter if he sacrifices himself or not, the lives of his wife and his boys are not in safe hands, because there's another war. But it's a really good scene, but this is another element that could have been perhaps played with more in the episode, that perhaps he doesn't want to die, because he knows he was okay dying, because he knew that then he would be sacrificing himself to save his wife and children. But knowing that they're not safe even if he does sacrifice himself, why would he be okay sacrificing himself? Which is an element that I thought they could have played with more. That is a really good scene. I really do love the scene with the First Doctor entering the 12th Doctor's TARDIS. Now, this is a big talking point. The First Doctor's 60s values, which has been heavily criticised. I criticised it heavily myself in my audio reaction, my first thoughts that I put out about Twice Upon a Time. And I think it's funny. I do find a lot of the things that the First Doctor says quite funny. But then they're not First Doctor things to say. I think the whole point, David Bradley's performance is brilliant as the First Doctor, but the writing just isn't there. Moffat clearly doesn't know the First Doctor at all. Not through one point does David Bradley feel like the First Doctor. The First Doctor does feel like the First Doctor in this episode, which, as it was somebody else playing, which had already sparked controversy. That was something they had to get right. They had to make the First Doctor feel like the First Doctor in this episode. And he doesn't. I think there are a few scenes where he does. I think, like when he's talking to Gil about why he left Gallifrey and what he was running towards. He feels like the First Doctor. But I think other than that, he just doesn't really feel like the First Doctor at all. And I think the 60s values is a big part of that. And it doesn't make sense, I don't think, any of the 60s values, really. The whole fact that he doesn't know what an electric guitar is rubbish, because he's been to the future even in his first incarnation a number of times. And Gallifrey isn't situated in the same time period as the 1960s. He went back to the 1960s. It's stated in An Unearthly Child that they've been to various places before settling in London, in Tortoise Lane Junkyard. So surely that would mean other time zones too. So why he's so stuck in the 60s is another meaning. Because the character was written in the 60s, but the actual first incarnation of the Doctor isn't from the 60s. He should share the same values as our current incarnation, the 12th Doctor, because the Doctor doesn't, as far as we're aware, the Doctor doesn't exist in any one time. He exists in all times, and the time that he actually comes from, what year, is never really stated. So he isn't stuck in one time period. There, why he shares values from other time periods, such as the 60s, like with the whole sexism thing, I just don't see. I did laugh at some of the jokes, but I just think that's not the first Doctor. And I think had it been a different Time Lord, for example, an elder Time Lord who had been living in the 60s, picked up their mannerisms, and then joined the Doctor, then it would have made more sense. But this was the first Doctor, and he never made any of sexist remarks. Sure, he is kind of sexist in his undertones just because of the period, like in An Unearthly Child, where he dismisses Barbara and dismisses what Barbara thinks and goes straight to Ian. Although he's never outright sexist, really, like, so unsubtly saying it. He's never really done like this. He's never got Polly to dust the TARDIS. He's never said women are made of glass. He's never really showed any of these 60s sexism values in his original, in the first Doctor's original appearances. Therefore, it doesn't fit the character, and there just distances David Bradley from William Hartnell's first Doctor even more. And it just didn't need to be in there because they couldn't really justify it because it wasn't what the first Doctor said. I'll admit that there was one line where the first Doctor tells Bill to watch her language or he'll give her a jolly good smack bottom, but then, which is taken straight from the Dark Invasion of Earth. But then he's saying that to his granddaughter, which is kind of like a parental thing to say. Is it right to be said on television now? No. It's something that a parent would have said to their daughter or their granddaughter or their child. Therefore, taking it out of context and saying it to some random girl who he doesn't know just isn't right. So the sexism thing just makes David Bradley feel less like the first Doctor and more like an old 60s Doctor. Antagonists, or what we thought were the main antagonists, is the enchanted glass people. And I don't think they look that great in terms of CGI, but they're a nice little idea with their testimony, and I think they could have gone a far way. Although, I just don't get to reveal that they're not evil. This could have been a good idea to do in an episode, but you don't do it in a Doctor's final story, because it just doesn't work. There needs to be stakes. The Doctor needs to do something heroic. He doesn't need to save the universe, but as proven in the Caves of Vajrayana, the Doctor acts heroic in his final moments, and you just don't get that with this Doctor. Because the antagonists just aren't bad. They're not trying to do anything. The Doctor has nothing to stop. It just feels like it makes the whole episode feel redundant, because there's nothing for the Doctor to do now. And then it feels like there's a ton cut from the episode, because then the Doctor just returns the Captain to his time zone. So what was the whole point of this episode? It's just the enchanted glass people were a waste and an utterly terrible antagonist. And really weren't suited for this story. Now we get the whole thing where the enchanted glass people say that the Doctor is a doctor of war. And then the first Doctor's like, I'm a doctor, yes, but of war, never. And then the enchanted glass people bring up bubbles of tons of different clips from the Doctors from all the incarnations, which is really nice throwback. And then list of all the things that the Doctor's destroyed. And the first Doctor's horrified at what he's become. But then the fourth Doctor says, yeah, but they cut out all the jokes. But yeah, it's a nice concept. And then at the end, when they say that when obviously the armistice, and the first Doctor says, this is what it means to be a Doctor of war. That they are saving people, preventing wars, such and such. And then gives a whole new meaning to the whole Doctor of War thing. And it's a kind of nice semi little arc placed in this episode, which is something that could have been expanded on. Like a lot of things in this episode, although there was a 1 hour runtime rather than a 45-minute one. But it was a nice little semi-arc that was just kind of there. So, yeah, Bill returns in this episode. Why? So, she's gone on a bit of a Clara route because she had a great send-off in World Nothing Time being converted into a Cyberman, which is a horrible fate for a companion. Although, at the end of the Doctor Falls, she is kind of giving another send-off where she goes off with Heather and becomes a puddle person, which sort of is a bit like the whole Clara Ashilda thing that happens at the end of Hell Bent. But I think it's done better, and it's kind of a nice way for a character to end. So I was happy that it's all tied up at the end of the Doctor Falls. And then for some reason she's back here. But is she? Because the episode seems to try and makes conflicting statements. It tries to try and tell you that this is Bill because it's Bill's memories, so it's Bill, so it is Bill, so we should care about this character. But then it also tries to tell you that it's not Bill, so we shouldn't care about this character. And it should just make up its mind, because you don't know how to feel about Bill. Therefore, I just feel that why is her character in it? It's just the author actually serves and does nothing in this episode. I would have rather that we just had the First Doctor and the Captain. She only really exists to make a few LGBT references to make the Captain and the First Doctor feel uneasy, and to ultimately be a point of a moral to show the Doctor that the Enchanted Glass people are for good. But apart from that, she does nothing. And Pearl Mackie's performance, I just find her incredibly irritating. Well, Bill's nowhere near my favourite companion, and I don't think she's as good in Series 10 as everybody keeps on saying she was. Although she was still a good companion and was a breath of fresh air, and I still enjoyed Pearl Mackie's performance. But in this episode, she just feels so annoying and so grating. And I don't know whether it's Pearl Mackie's performance or just what was written for her. But I just can't stand Bill in this episode, and would just much rather wished if she'd just been left to a cameo at the end, or just not been in it at all. The First Doctor's TARDIS, and it's been recreated really nicely actually. It was really good. It looks exactly like the First Doctor's TARDIS. Brilliant, in fact. Apart from this one wall that they keep on showing, which is inaccurate. They keep on showing it. But it bugs me because this is the wall that was used in the National Gallery at the end of the Day of the Doctor, as I've already said in a Twice Upon a Time Theories video I did probably about a month ago now. And I was ultimately right in that it wasn't a plot point to see the Curator and the 11th Doctor come back to get the 12th Doctor and 1st Doctor to save Gallifrey. It was just a reused bit of wall. Now I understand it's replacing the whole just like roundel wallpaper that they just had there because they didn't actually have another proper roundel wall, so they just had to have like a flat roundel wallpaper wall just there. And I understand that. And I don't actually mind the design of this wall. I actually really like the whole white hexagonal roundels. I actually prefer it to the actual classic roundels. But the classic roundels is what makes up this TARDIS. This TARDIS is one of the most iconic, it's the original. And they had the set in An Adventure in Space and Time, a perfect TARDIS set. And they also had a near-on brilliant classic TARDIS set in Hell Bent. So while they went to actually fully recreate the First Doctor's TARDIS in this episode, and when he did it accurately, it just bugs me. And I don't mind them reusing the wall because I do understand the reason for doing it. But they kept on showing this wall rather than the classic round walls, which just made it feel more inaccurate and made it bug me even more. Now we get to Villain Guard, and it looks brilliant. Obviously it's what's referenced in Moffat's first story, The Empty Shell the Doctor Dances. And I love how you have a ton of Dalek mutants out of their shells, just scuttling around and one attaches to Mark Gatiss's face. But this is where it all goes downhill. We get an unnecessary cameo from Rusty. Now, Rusty is obviously the good Dalek that the Doctor goes inside in the 12th Doctor's second full adventure into the Dalek. So it was a nice throwback to see a very early 12th Doctor adventure. But it just feels unnecessary, and this cameo really feels shoehorned in. Because the Rusty at the end of Into the Dalek was supposed to commit suicide. But they didn't, they just had Rusty go off because they intended to use him again, and they didn't. So we get Rusty appear here. And why? Because Rusty didn't need to be here, and it just feels shoehorned in. And I would have loved to see some actual, when the flashbacks to Into the Dalek, just to see a young 12th Doctor in his second full adventure. I would have loved to see some footage from that, just as a flashback. But instead we just have the 12th Doctor explaining it. And I just think it's just kind of irrelevant really, it doesn't need to be there. And then this is where the story kind of goes downhill, because ultimately it makes you think that they're going to go to all these places and then go back once they know who the Enchanted Glass people are and stop them. But no, they just find out that they're not evil, and the episode kind of stops and becomes irrelevant. And this is where it goes downhill. Although it does, you might find it strange because I say it goes downhill, and then it immediately picks back up with the armistice scene. Now that's because there's feels like a whole chunk in between that was cut. It doesn't flow properly, it feels like there's a hole missing there. Therefore it just goes downhill from what I wanted the episode to be. And then picks up in it's the middle of the episode, and then it immediately skips to the end, making the episode really irrelevant. And this is the point where this episode stopped being a very good episode and started being a very disappointing, irrelevant send-off for Capaldi. The Christmas Day Armistice, and this is actually a really nice scene. I love that Doctor have finally done the Christmas Day Armistice. I love how it's presented. One thing that could have been improved is I thought, seeing as the captain's in the translate TARDIS when he says, "I wish I could speak German to understand you," and they all started speaking carols, I wish that then meaning that all the German and the English soldiers could understand each other. I think it was a missed opportunity. But other than that, the Christmas armistice is a really nice scene. It's a really nice inclusion, bringing in a Christmassy element to this episode. I think I just love this whole Christmas Day armistice scene. And one thing we get when the Doctor leaves the captain is his reveal that he is the father, or I presume the grandfather, because if you look at it, the timelines don't really match up if he's the father, of the Brigadier. And although I seen this coming, everybody had been theorising about it, it was kind of obvious. And I would rather him be what was otherly theorised as the inventor of the police box, as he's inspired to do this, and he's says that these police boxes are absolutely good, aren't they? And Mark Gatiss looks like this guy. But the reveal that he's the Brigadier's grandfather is actually quite nice. It's a nice bit of fan service remembering the Brigadier, who obviously left during the Moffat era, and I think is much better than the whole cyber Brigadier that we got at the end of Death in Heaven. But yeah, that's a nice reveal. And Mark Gatiss' captain character is overall a very good character, and he's one of my favourite things about this episode, because although he was supposed to be a big character with the First Doctor and the 12th Doctor, and then was obviously pushed back into the background with old Bill coming back. But I do think that Mark Gatiss is really good, and I think the captain's a really good character. And I think the whole reveal that he's a Brigadier, although a bit the Brigadier's grandfather, although a bit anticlimactic, is a really nice little nod to the Brigadier. And the Christmas Day armistice scene as a whole is really, really good. And it's a really nice touching moment to leave the episode on. The First Doctor leaving the 12th Doctor and the battlefield, and he goes into his TARDIS, and this is really nice. It's a really nice touching moment, especially because of the track Marigold uses it. Although I've criticised him reusing the music and a lot of them do not fit, this does surprisingly, as I thought I would be. On first watch I was actually quite annoyed that they used the one of my favourite pieces of Marigold music, Veil, which is the music that accompanies the 10th Doctor's farewell tour at the end of the End of Time Part 2. And I think that music so good because it's that scene. When you hear it, it's that scene and no other scenes. So I wasn't very happy about it being used on first watch. But on second watch, I actually really thought it really fitted here with the First Doctor regenerating. And I really like how it then fades back out into black and white and 4x3, and they have they show the clip of the original clip of Hartnell regenerating into Troughton. Because what they could have done is just had the scene recreated with David Bradley and maybe got someone like Reece Shearsmith back in from An Adventure in Space and Time. But I really like how it fades back out with this 4x3 black and white scene. Bill returns and she gives a nice message to the Doctor, and then we get some returning friends. And she says, "Yeah, I have a present for you." And then who do we see? Clara. Why? Well, I can see why, and it's not too bad. But that's another nail in the coffin for Hell Bent, because it actually just makes Hellbent even more redundant, with the Doctor now remembering Clara. But the whole scene didn't really need to be in there because the green screen was so terrible. And for some reason Jerry Coleman's voice didn't quite sound right, I'm not sure why. But yeah, I think the scene was a bit pointless because of just how bad the green screen was. But we do see Nardole again, which is something that I am quite happy to see Nardole again, as I did enjoy him throughout Series 10. And then the Doctor says that where he goes alone. And then he goes into a TARDIS. And I like his speech to begin with. It's an okay idea doing it to his next incarnation. But I think it rambles on a bit with some pointless bits about don't tell you by your name, the children can hear your name is a bit weird. Because the children can't hear his name. So I don't get that. But yeah, it rambles on a bit. But Capaldi's performance is stellar within this scene. And it is a nice scene for the 12th Doctor to end with, although it could have been a lot better. The writing from Moffat is not very strong at all. And he deserved better, although Capaldi does act his socks off in the scene. And then he obviously regenerates into Julie Whittaker. And this scene is brilliant, because I just love the whole direction of it. It's another credit to Rachel Talalay. How it goes, we see the last bit we see of the 12th Doctor is his eyes, which is obviously the first thing we see in The Day of the Doctor. And then it fades into Jodie Whittaker's eyes, but then we suddenly see from the back with the smoke and the TARDIS, and then we see the Capaldi's ring drop off her finger, and then we see the slow-mo of her look in the scanner, and then we finally see her, which is really nice. We haven't had anything like that in the Regeneration. We usually just have the basic fade in, and then we see the actor. But this is a really nice different direction to take it, and I really like it. And then the whole blowing up the TARDIS, although it's been done countless times before, just looks so brilliant here. With all the bookshelves just falling off the TARDIS time rotor, burning up and shattering. And obviously the 13th Doctor falling out of the TARDIS. Although it is pretty easy how this will be resolved, the TARDIS disappears at the end and will just rematerialise to catch her in, and she'll probably fall into the swimming pool or something like that. It's a nice cliffhanger, and the scene is generally directed brilliantly. The cast, and I must stress that I won't be including Matt Lucas or Jenna Coleman on here just because they're not really in it, really. Although I will be including the 13th Doctor on the cast list. But so let's go the final appearance of the 12th Doctor, played by Peter Capaldi. And although I think the script isn't very good by Moffat for his last story, and I think it is very reflective of the era that Moffat hasn't been writing good script for Capaldi. Capaldi acts his socks off, and his performance is stellar. He just encapsulates all the best things about his Doctor in this episode, and the raw emotion that Capaldi shows is brilliant. His performance is absolutely exceptional, as it has been throughout his whole run. Just the scripts, once again, let him down. But the performance was stellar, as always, from Capaldi. First Doctor, played by David Bradley, and his performance was brilliant also, although once again, like Capaldi, the writing really lets David Bradley down here. It doesn't feel like the First Doctor at all, and I think the David Bradley First Doctor will be forever remembered by those sexist remarks. But David Bradley's performance is really good, like it is in An Adventure in Space and Time, and he is really good in this episode. His performance is really good as well. Bill, played by Pearl Mackie, and I would say this is probably Pearl Mackie's worst performance as Bill, because I think she's been very consistent in her portrayal as Bill in Series 10. But she just, like I've said before, just comes across as so irritating and annoying in this. And I think that is a bit more to do with Moffat's writing, although I don't really think Pearl Mackie's performance does help. There's just something about her that just really annoys me in this episode. Captain, played by Mark Gatiss, and I really love his character. He goes for a whole arc. I really like the inclusion of a World War I soldier, and I think Mark Gatiss' performance is really good. He really sells the part. 13th Doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker. Now, I can't really say much about the performance because it's really non-existent, really. The whole scene works more on the direction, as Jodie Whittaker only actually says 2 words, "Oh, brilliant." But, yeah, I think I was never a fan of the whole idea of a female Doctor. I'm still not a fan of the idea of a female Doctor. Although it's happened now, and I'm sure Jodie Whittaker will be brilliant And obviously the scene does get me excited for the new series. So, overall, my score. Now, this episode is not a bad episode. It has some very good moments in here. As few as they are, the interaction between the 12th and 1st Doctors are brilliant, as is scenes like the Christmas Day armistice scene. But I just think the overall script and non-existent plot of this episode just lets it down, and I think Moffat has been extremely lazy for his last ever story. I think it's a reflection of the whole Capaldi era, because although Capaldi's performances have been good in a lot of his stories, the stories are just terrible down to the writing from Moffat, and I think Capaldi deserved better, and we deserved better. Although I did enjoy it more on a second watch than I did on the first watch, but I'm still going to keep with my score that I gave in my audio reaction, which is a 6.5 out of 10.
Welcome to the end of the world.
Earth death is scheduled for 1539.
Who the hell are you? Oh, I'm the Doctor. This is Rose Tyler. She's my +1. Is that alright? That's not supposed to happen.
Representing the forest of Cheam, we have trees, the mocks of Balhoun, the face of Bo, the last human, the lady, Cassandra O'Brien.
Oh, now, don't stare. Look in.
Heat levels rising. Heat levels rising.
Please like this video if you have enjoyed it, and if you want to see more content from my channel, then please hit subscribe. Watching, and goodbye.